So I am going to continue a little review or a little overview of Stata by looking at some graphs that you can create in Stata that might help you with your descriptions of your surveys that you all are doing. So I am still using the data set that we had before, the California State Test one for 2012 and 2013. So I've already imported that. So if you don't know how to import a data set, go watch the video that is posted before this one. So first off, I want to look at histograms. So any of our graphs are going to be under graphics. So I'm going to look at a histogram first because this is what we've been looking at in class a lot lately. But remember, when you're looking at histograms, you're looking at things that are going to be numbers, things that you can count. So there are two different things here. So if I'm looking at the data, say I want to find, I'm going to look at the mass scaled scores here when we're looking here. So if I look at mass scaled scores for 2012, what I can do here is you can choose data or continuous or data or discrete. So the difference between these two things can be a little hard to describe. So discrete data is ones that can only take on a certain value in an interval. So for example, like a number, if you think about somebody's age in years, people will say they're 25 or 34. That's a discrete variable because it's a number that is a whole number in an interval. Another type of discrete data point might be these mass scale scores because they are usually whole numbers and they're going to be ones that are a certain number within an interval. Continuous data is data that can vary throughout a wide range. So if you think about, for example, somebody's weight, we can think about weight as, say, someone weighs 120 pounds, or they could weigh 120.5 pounds, or maybe they weigh 120.569 pounds. And it can also vary by scale. So that data can be continuous. For the most part, it's not going to really matter which of these you choose. I'm going to choose data or discrete for this one. But you can see here what happens is when I do continuous, I can change the number of bins. Remember, the bins are the bars that we create. If I choose discrete, it makes it go away. You see there? So if it's important to you to be able to make the number of bins a certain number, then you might want to keep it as continuous. I'm going to choose discrete for now. For our data set, I can't remember what the numbers were, but you can change the width of the bins. I'm going to make my bins maybe 10. If you don't choose that, it's going to automatically give you one for whatever the bins are going to be. For the y-axis, you can choose density, fraction, frequency, or percent. For the most part, you're going to want to choose frequency or percent. Density functions are something that are a little bit beyond the scope of what we're looking at for descriptive statistics, but if you choose frequency, it's going to look at the percent. If you look at a percent, it's going to look at the percent. Frequency is going to be the count. So like if we look at the number of scores between, say, 120 and 130, that number on the y-axis would be the count. If you look at percent, it would change it to a percentage. So let's leave it as frequency for now. There's a whole lot of other things here. If you want to change, you can do if then. You can restrict it to things. I wouldn't worry about that too much. We're not going to look at weights. You can change what the y-axis says. So I could give it a title. I could call it frequency. It automatically calls it frequency, but if you want to be, you want to make it something special. The x-axis will automatically call it whatever it's going to be. I'm not going to change that just so I can show you how you can change it on the graph itself. And you can change the title too. So let me call this my histogram for math scores in 2012. So you can make that look pretty if you want to. So I'm going to hit OK. And what it does is it gives me this nice looking histogram. So it's actually this one that you could put into a paper. It's a print-worthy histogram here. And you can see the bars are by tens. I can make it a little wider if I wanted to. You can actually edit the graph here. So say I wanted to change anything. If I hit that graph editor, well, I unclicked it, hit it, you can, like say I wanted to call this actually what it is. It's Math SS 2012, can be hard to understand. I could say Math Scaled Scores 2012 or whatever you wanted to call it. You hit OK, and it gives it the name itself. You can look over here at frequency and change that if you want to. You can actually put text here if you wanted to. So say for some reason you wanted to say something like, notice how the scores look normal. Because it does follow a pretty normal curve. You can hit OK, and you get this nice little text box. And you can move it around by clicking again on the arrow, and that'll move it around for you. That might be something you want to print out. You know, you might want to be able to notice things here. You can actually put little markers here, which is kind of neat. You can change whatever the marker is. You can make it like an X or an arrow is kind of neat because you could say, you know, maybe like it's going up here. See, I can add little arrows everywhere. So you can put all types of little fancy things here. I'm just going to undo those. Get my little arrows off because I don't want those. So that you can make a story with your graph or that sort of thing. You can edit the grid as well. You can change what it looks like. I'm not going to do that for this one. You can add lines as well, but you can also go over here and add different things. So that's what your histogram looks like. If you want to, you can, because I know some, especially educated people, like this sort of thing. If I want to change the plot itself, the color now is khaki, which is super fun, right? But you have all these colors. You see all these colors? And say you're trying to do a presentation for something at NC State, for example, right? They have a certain color that you need to go by for NC State. I couldn't tell you what it is right now, but if you define custom colors, you can change the red, green, and blues over here to make it what it is. I think it's like 20200. Can't quite recall. So you can add that as a custom color, and then you can change it so that when you're doing that presentation at that conference, then you would have NC State's colors. You would have the NC State brand, which is important. So yeah, you can change the histogram all you want to make it look how you would want it to look. So that's what your histograms look like. You can play with the tools. Mostly everything that they have on here, they also have as something here that you can change, and graph change the properties or that sort of thing. You can also, you can save the graph, so you can save it as a picture or PDF if you want to. It looks like it already saves it as a Stata graph, but you can go down here and save it as a PNG. It's the ones that I usually use the most when I'm trying to import something. So I can save it as a PNG. I can save it. Let's say I save it to my desktop just so you can see what it looks like. So if I save it, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Sure. Oh, you can say, okay, I would ask you if you want to save it anyway. Okay, so I'm going to just say don't save. And then if I look for it on my desktop, look at my little boy. There's my graph there. And saved it as a PNG. So I should be able to import it into any other things that I want, like a report or something like that. Just being a little slow there, but it is there. You guys can see it. Just being a little slow opening it, probably because it's so pretty. All right, so that is your graph. And again, over here, your commands are saved. So if you ever need to pull it back up, it's right there. So you can look at it as well. The next one I wanted to show you, I want to stay along the lines of things that you would use for interval data. So if I look at, say, a box plot, for example, that's another common one we would use. Say I want to look at a box plot. I'm going to stick with the mass scale scores and look at that. The orientation is whether it's up, straight up and down, or if it's horizontal. I prefer horizontal ones just because that's how I was trained. I don't know. You can even put grouping here. So say I wanted to look at mass scaled scores, but I wanted to break it down by, let's say I wanted to break it down whether or not they got free or reduced lunch. Okay. So if I do that, there I get two really nice box plots. So you can see here, this is the box plot. Remember the box plot, this is your minimum, your maximum. Your quartile 1, quartile 3 are the outsides of the box, and the median is the middle. But you can see here that, oops, sorry. All right, so as I was saying, you can see here that this is the number of people that did not receive free or reduced lunch, and these are the ones that did. And you can noticeably see there's a shift between the mass scaled scores of people that did receive free or reduced lunch or didn't, which is usually tied to socioeconomic factors. So it looks like the ones that don't have to get free or reduced lunch have a higher mass scale score. Anyway, that's for a whole other class, right? But it's an interesting way. I mean, couldn't you make a really great argument right here about maybe some inferences you can make about the data? This little blue guy over here, he is, or she is, it could be a girl, is what we call an outlier. So in Stata, it's going to have outliers above or below the box plots on these little points here. So you can kind of see there's an outlier at 600. So this person that received free or reduced lunch and had a score of 600 was way above, so much above what normal range was, that it's an outlier. So that's not normally happening. And again, the graph editor, you have the same options here as before. You can change the title here to mass scaled scores. You can change the color to that nice NC State red or whatever you want to do. So you have all types of things here. You can save it again, all types of things you can do here as well. All right, so if I want to look at things that have to specifically do with categorical data or ordinal data, if I look at, say for example, a bar chart, that's going to be one that people go to a lot. You don't want a graph. Well, you can do a graph of summary statistics if you want to, but for us, if we're looking at things, say you want to know how many people said yes or no to something you did or on a Likert scale, we're going to look graphs of frequencies within categories, okay? And again, you can change a horizontal or vertical orientation, so whether the bars go up and down or whether they go side to side. But if I do graph or frequencies within categories, I have to choose a category. So say, for example, I wanted to look at again, this is categorical things, right? So I want to look at that free or reduced lunch, or I wanted to look at gender. So I'm going to look at free or reduced lunch, whether or not students get free or reduced lunch. That's right here. And if I hit OK, I get this nice graph. So again, here's a frequency count of people that have free or reduced lunch. I only had 2 variables here, a yes or a no. All right. For categories, let's group them by gender to see if there's any difference in gender, maybe, that people get free or reduced lunch. All right, so here's the females that get free or reduced lunch, and here's the males. It looks like there's a lot more males that get free or reduced lunch than females, right? I think that bar chart there could tell you that. But it looks like the people that don't, there's really not that big of a difference, is it? It's pretty interesting there. That's an interesting chart. And again, you can change here. You can change the colors again if you wanted to change the x-axis colors themselves. I could just click on it. You can go over here and change the individual tick marks. So you can change things like we were saying, and you can change the positions of the graph. You can go in here and change the actual colors. You can go into the bar region. We all like going in the bar, right? And you can change the labels. You can make them horizontal here too. That's neat. So you can turn them so they're sideways if you want to. You might want to do it like that. So there's all types of things you can change here and play with it. And I always encourage you to change it because you just to learn, to see what it is. And it looks like you can change the background color here. Let's make it gold. Yeah, it makes it pop, right? And again, you can save these graphs just like we did before. So you can save it as PNG or as, what are some of the other options here? Just to look. You can change it as data graph, a GIF file, a PNG, a TIFF. You can change it as a PDF even if you want to. So whatever you want for your graphs. So. There's other graphs you can play with as well. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but there are pie charts. There's also a dot chart, which is kind of like what we were looking at before when we were looking at different, when we were looking at code apps. So go ahead and play around with this, and if you have questions, let us know, but we are going to let you play with your own data set as well as other data sets that we can find descriptive statistics on.